Hey, ladies. Welcome to Black Women Making Money. We are the home of the upwardly mobile Black woman. Please give us a like as you are coming in today. And if you're listening to the replay, please put replay in the chat for your girl. Everybody else is talking about it. Everybody else is talking about the upwardly mobile Black woman. And since we are the home of the upwardly mobile Black woman, and we seem to be targeted, we seem to be targeted a lot these days. We are targeted. I was listening to True Mystique earlier today. Shout out to True Mystique. And she was talking about the fact that a lot of this stuff that's happening with us right now, just true distractions, right? There are a lot of distractions happening with us, things to get us riled up, etc. But she also talked about the fact that there are things being taken away from us as well as upwardly mobile Black women. And of course, you all know I agree with her. Um, we've talked on this channel incessantly about affirmative action ending, DEI ending. There's good and bad parts to both of those things. We have talked about, yes, the Fearless Fund has won round one of its discrimination lawsuit. If you all don't know what that is, the Fearless Fund is a venture capital fund that specifically gives money to Black women to start and grow their businesses. And because of the affirmative action being rolled back, the people that did that lawsuit went after the Fearless Fund in order to say that it is discriminatory for you to have a venture capital fund for specifically for Black women. And they have won round one of their discrimination lawsuit. However, it would not surprise me at all if this goes up to the Supreme Court, ladies, right? So right now we're being targeted a lot of different fronts. Shout out to True Mystique. I was talking about you earlier, True Mystique, just now, right? And you're right. We are getting targeted. A lot of this stuff is distractions, and people cannot seem to keep the upwardly mobile Black woman's name out of their mouths, right? Because all of this stuff is targeting us. All of this stuff that is happening is not targeting impoverished Black women. It's not. Impoverished Black women are having children. Impoverished Black women, they may not be getting married, but that's not the issue. That's not the issue. These individuals on the Republican side and the Democrat side are not really going after the impoverished Black woman when it comes to this stuff. Bus driver gate was not about the impoverished Black woman. It is about the upwardly mobile Black woman. And I don't have any sorry, I've read benefits here. Um, I don't have any proof of this, but I believe, I believe that people are seeing now the upward trajectory of upwardly mobile Black women. There are going to be a lot more upwardly mobile Black women than upwardly mobile Black men in the next few years. I know a lot of people now are like, Black men make more money than Black women. And it's true based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But I'm curious to know from a pure amount of Black women versus Black men how we're doing, because I have a feeling that there are more upwardly mobile Black women than Black men. And again, when we say upwardly mobile on this channel, we mean somebody who makes 130,000 plus, 130,000 plus, and who has a net worth of $550,000 plus. And if you're not there, you're on your way, right? Like truly have the trajectory for that. And there's a lot that's happening right now that's being targeted towards us. So I'm going to read some of your comments here. We're going to play a little bit of Eboni, but I don't want to spend a lot of my time talking about Eboni. I want to spend more of my time with the wasp. tonight, and is a guy named Scott Galloway. Scott Galloway is a guy, along with another WASP named Richard Reeves. I shouldn't call them WASP, just white men, right? The white men right now have like, they are screaming fire right now because there is a global man crisis. And I think we as upwardly mobile Black women should care about that. So we're going to talk a little bit about Ebony. But the overall issue is not just impacting upwardly mobile Black women, it's impacting white people as well. And white people are about to do something about it. No, for their culture, right? For their culture. But yeah, look, I'm just curious and interested to see what's going to happen over the next 10, 15 years. This guy, Scott Galloway, has some comments that he has made that I think is going to be interesting for us to kind of go through. I am a woman who believes that if you are not looking to be married, you're not looking to have kids, no problem. I am a widow. I never had kids. I never got married again. I'm perfectly fine, perfectly happy with that. I was not going to have kids outside of wedlock, and I never prioritized it, and I don't sit here and have like a complex or issue about that. I do believe if you are a young lady and you do want to have children, having children in marriage is the best way to do it. However, I do believe that every woman should be able to have a way to financially sustain herself if things go left. I believe that every married woman should always still have her head on a swivel, right? I do believe that Ebony and Kevin Samuels and all of these people are trying to give upwardly mobile Black women a complex about getting married, um, to where if you are not married, you are invalidated. And I absolutely don't agree with that or don't believe that. And I don't think you should either. The worst thing you can do is marry the wrong man, especially as an upwardly mobile Black woman. I have had friends who have paid alimony. They were not, who is it, Mary J. Blige, etc. These are regular upwardly mobile Black women who married down and ended up having to pay alimony. I've had a couple of friends like that. And I had a couple of friends who had to sell their house that they bought themselves. They bought the house themselves. They ended up getting married, and when the marriage was over, she had to sell her house and give the husband half of the profits. And if you all know real estate these days, that can be a couple $100,000 that is removed from your net worth and your kids' net worth. So, Ebony, Kevin Samuels, I know Kevin Samuels is dead, but all of these people talking about relationships, I believe, this is just Cherie, I believe they're not giving you the full story. People want to give you information that is in sound bites, and marriage, selecting a husband, selecting the right father for your children, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of nuance there. I'm not a relationship expert per se. I know the business of marriage. We used to talk about it all the time, the business of marriage, the business of money in marriage. That is as far as I go. But I do know that if you select the wrong person to be the father of your children, we've said this over and over again on this channel, the father of your children is the most important financial decision you will ever make in your life. And if you get it wrong, it doesn't mean that you can't overcome, but it does mean that you can be set back decades. It does. So with that, Beulah is in the house. Selfish love. Yes, they cannot keep upwardly mobile Black women's names out of their, they just can't. They can't. So Olivia is here. Cherie, who benefits from targeting us? So here's my conspiracy theory, because Ebony has said three very interesting things, I think it's been, since she's gone viral, right? And I think she's looking for ways to go viral to promote her judge show. Don't get it twisted. Like, I think that's why she did this whole monologue. Outside of the fact that she may believe it as well, and she may have been talking to some people, but the way to get people to watch her new judge show, which nobody was really looking for, is for her to stir up some controversy. So she did this, right? But we had bus driver gate. We had what else? We had something else as well with Ebony. Um, and then, we have this. We have this. So who benefits? Oh, yeah, bus driver gate. And then she was selling us on being single mothers by choice and, using sperm banks. And we had that whole conversation, which again was targeted to the upwardly mobile Black woman. And I did watch her on the Breakfast Club a couple of days ago, and she talked about the fact that she's spending $50,000 impregnated, to get impregnated, the fertility, and $50,000, that is for the upwardly mobile Black woman. And then now this. So my opinion, who is benefiting, or who is going to benefit the most from targeting us, I believe, selfish love, is capitalism. I believe there are certain industries that the upwardly mobile Black woman who is unattached and doesn't have kids is kind of the last frontier for a lot of these industries. White women who have children and married and things like that, even though they are educated, they tend to follow certain financial paths in life, and we have not been on that train. So if you're asking me what I think, my big conspiracy is it's capitalism. It's capitalism. They thought they wanted us only at work, but the truth is they want us at work, and they want us having children and paying the light bill. Hint, hint. Coco Tigers is in the building to push you to poverty. So they're actually, the Brookings Institute talks about that. They talk about that when a Black woman has a child outside of marriage or with the incorrect father, that it does push her into poverty. Now, I believe it depends on what kind of skills you had before you got pregnant, right? I was listening to, was it I was listening to Larry Elder, who we're going to come back and talk about Larry Elder on the Higher Learning show. But he was giving some outdated advice. He said to the host of Higher Learning, if a Black person just graduates high school, keeps a job for 2 years, and doesn't get pregnant before 20, then they will never be in poverty. I said, that's a damn lie. 71-year-old Larry Elder running for president, telling Black people that if you just graduate from high school, one, number two, you keep a job for 2 years, and number three, you don't have a child before age 20, you'll never be in poverty. That is a lie. That may have worked 20 years ago. That's not working today. That is outdated, bad advice. And I'm gonna break it down at some point. Hopefully, when we go back into our politics debate, I'm gonna talk about that. But the reason it is a lie is because these days, if you graduate from high school, there are a lot of people graduating from high school who can't read. Shout out to I shouldn't say shout out. Shout out was a bad term. I should say, think about Baltimore schools, certain schools in California, etc. There are places who are passing kids through high school who cannot read. So just having a high school diploma is not a guarantee that you won't be in poverty. Just keeping a job for 2 years is not a guarantee you won't be in poverty, because you could be making minimum wage and you can't live off minimum wage. You will be in poverty if you make minimum wage, right? And then not having a child before 20. So at 20, I have a child and all of a sudden I'm not going to be in poverty just because I had a job for 2 years. Dumbest advice ever. But hey, Coco Tigress, hello. Um, everyone makes money off of us. It's true. It's true. They're doing. They do. I'm just trying to figure out the specific targeting and why over these past couple of years. Fertility clinics are now going to be able to make money off of us. Diaper companies, formula companies, daycares, you know, um, any and every wedding industry, right? The wedding industry, everything from a ring to a dress to, all of that stuff. And then when you end up divorcing, that's a whole industry as well. So the divorce lawyers, the divorce courts, the child support courts, etc. It's a whole racket, selfish love, but you're right. Like, specific targeting. If we look at this specific targeting, what are they trying to get us into? If you think about the entire life cycle of us, what are they trying to get us into? This is my conspiracy theory. In the 80s and the 90s, there was, I do believe that there was a concerted effort to put gangster rap into our culture and to have, especially Black men imprisoned for many, many years, right? I believe that boasted up the prison industry. And now they're looking for us to bolster up these other industries, weddings, you know, kids, divorces, et cetera, et cetera. So, yes, yes, yes. Business Talk with Kay is in the building. Um, they're always about it. So I'm going to kind of go through some of these a little bit faster. Ebony should have told women to network as much as possible in college and keep that network active as possible until it's time to get married. Here's the thing. Ebony knows better. Ebony has a phenomenal network, and the only reason Ebony is not married today is because Ebony doesn't want to be married. Ebony is too pretty. She's too smart. She's too sophisticated. She's in too many of the right rooms. So, and I'm not saying there's something wrong with her. I'm saying if Ebony wanted to be married, she would be married. She would be married. So, not that I'm saying that younger women don't have it easier in finding spouses. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if Ebony wanted to be married, she would be married. So, Dawn Earth is saying, I think it's greed and politically motivated. If you're openly mobile, you don't need government services. You don't need social services. You don't need liberal organizations who benefit from you. I believe that. Good point. You're more likely to vote conservative as well. So, Black women need to sign a prenup. But here's the case. Here's the thing. True Mystique. If Jeannie Mai, married to the little rapper Jeezy, whom I don't know any of Jeezy's songs, but okay, right? If she can break that prenup, do not believe just because you have a prenup that it can't be broken. And my friends didn't have prenups, so I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. But don't believe there are a whole lot of prenups that get broken. So, yeah. You say I heard her response on Dr. Raquel Martin today, and she, in my opinion, didn't make much of a better case. I didn't hear it on the Breakfast Club, but the Breakfast Club is kind of difficult to hear with regards to cases. She's making with her. So I believe in a lot of what she said, but it just wasn't nuanced enough. And I know you cannot be nuanced with a 3-minute segment. But just telling upwardly mobile young Black women in college go to college, and yeah, it's 7-1, but just fight over a man like with no qualifiers in it. No, that's just horrible. It there's so much left out of that advice. There's just so much. Yeah, protect yourself legally before marriage. You want to do that anyway. Yeah. You're saying here, she did clarify her stance, though, saying that if you know what you want, go for it. Question is, how many 19, 20-year-olds know what they want or think they know what they want? A la Janaea Jackson? Isn't that her name? She met Derek. Now, they had a whole nother issue going on, but she met Derek Jackson in college, and look at all of that. Look at what's happening. So I just think there are caveats that we need to be aware of. And yeah, Haddish is talking. Tiffany Haddish is looking for money in any way possible after all that stuff came out with those kids. And I don't have any sympathy for Tiffany Haddish, but yeah. Um, with all these illegal migrants flooding the borders of cities, Black women are the least of their problems. Um, I think that capitalism looks at every aspect, every industry, and they can fight two wars, quote unquote, at the same time. It's up to you to be on your P's and Q's and have your head on a swivel with regards to all of this. Christina's in the building. They will keep targeting us, but then crime will target them. I wonder when they will learn who. I don't know who crime will target, but okay. So y'all are saying a lot. So I'm going to. Alonzo is in the building as well. Salute, Alonzo. And True Mystique is saying Ebony stated marriage isn't for her. True Mystique. Why is she lying? Why is Ebony sitting over here lying? Lying to people. All right, well, let's hear what she has to say. Let me make this a bit smaller. Yeah, like that. So we don't have issues with YouTube. Let's hear what dear old Ebony had to say. Fortunately, this is only 2 minutes.
That needs to be said out loud is that as Black men age, their desirability increases. Thus, their optionality of women is always expanding. And the exact opposite is true for Black women.
First of all, Black men, only if their income and their wealth is increasing, do their options expand as they get older. So, again, I know she was trying to put it into a 2-minute segment, but like we need to be honest about these things. It's not every Black man who is getting a lot more options as he's getting older. That's not the case. That's not the case. It is the upwardly mobile Black man. So now, is the upwardly mobile Black man, does he have a lot more options? Of course he does. Of course he does, to a certain point, and then it goes back downhill again. But yeah, and we can be honest as women and say, yeah, that's the case. Okay, so let's keep going.
As we age, doesn't matter how much money we accumulate, our degrees or professional accolades. The reality is that our marriage and partnership market value is depreciating with every passing year. No matter how good we look, no matter how fit we are, men are still seeing primarily our presumed dwindling fertility as a knock against us. And speaking of fertility, that is another reason that I want younger Black women to seek marriage and partnership in college or right after, if that's what they choose. Because the number of college-educated Black men is so low when compared to Black college-educated women that we're all going to be targeting the same small pool of men.
And to me, why would you want to suggest to a young 20-year-old Black woman to go after such a small pool like that? that really kind of disappointed me about what Ebony is saying. I honestly think, again, this 2-minute monologue is to get her views on her judge show that she has coming up. I don't think it was for anything else. Um, when you are in business, you are taught that you want to go for a decent sized niche of people who are looking to purchase from you. And yes, when you are looking for a romantic partner, you have to have a wide enough net. And what Ebony has done here, which I think is very interesting, is she has reduced the net. She has reduced the net for these young women that she is talking to in this segment. You're saying here, I don't, Cherie. I've seen some poor snaggle BM continue to pull women. Some women are just desperate to have any man. So some, yes. Some, yes. But when we start talking about the Scott Galloway thing, if we are going to compare that to other men who are able to pull a lot more women, look, every man can pull women, right? The truth is, every woman, if you lower your standards enough, you can pull a man as well. But will they have, like, tons of women? A snaggletooth man? No, no. Mm-mm. Um, you're saying here, Rana's in the house. She's targeting the younger generation, and everyone seems to be targeting the younger generation of upwardly mobile Black women. There seems to be an interesting, concerted effort to shift Generation Z and Generation Alpha of upwardly mobile Black women. It really does. Century is in the house saying, I feel this is also an issue with America not wanting the populace to talk about money. Look, y'all know, if y'all in my house over here, we gonna talk about money. No offense, but they the only group of people whose net worth decreases after a certain age. The ones who have a higher net worth are married. That is true. And I believe that, and I don't have any studies for this, but I'm sure there are studies around this. I believe that men who are married, they have a certain motivation that pushes them further than unmarried men. So that is the reason why you see, if you look on, like, you know, any kind of statistical thing with regards to men who are doing very well, they're typically married. Their wives push them in a way that if they were single, they would not be pushed. Their kids push them in a way that if they were single, they would not be pushed. Um, and the truth is, let's be honest, ladies, if we are married to the right man, we will be far wealthier than if we are single. There is truth to that. The problem is, if you pick wrong, then that slides you back, especially if you pick wrong and you have kids with the man. That slides you back in a way that can sometimes be hard to recover from. So I'm not telling anybody to not get married or to get married. We're here to have the nuanced conversation from an upwardly mobile point of view. That's what we're here to do. Let's keep going here. I know you all are putting a lot in the chat, but I just want to finish this up. And then we're going to listen to a WASP named Scott Galloway and what he thinks is happening when it comes to men. Especially, they're talking about white men and men globally. But, we want to open up our eyes, not just talking about Black men, but looking at men overall and the shrinking pool of men for all women. It's not just Black women. It's not just upwardly mobile Black women. There is a shrinking pool for all women. And I think governments now are going to start really addressing this as an issue. Now, they're not coming to address Black men. They're not coming to address Black men, but they will be addressing what is happening with white men. So let's keep listening to Eboni.
We heard today on most campuses, there's like 7 Black women students for every 1 Black man student. Y'all do the math. So here's my advice. If you are a young Black woman in college and you know in your heart and in your head that you want to prioritize family, I suggest that you simultaneously pursue that MRS degree right along with that BA or JD. Because a handful of Black college-age men that actually do desire to get married soon, and they do share that value system, and family is a priority for them too. Y'all, that is an incredibly small pool, and it's shrinking as you get older.
So let's take a look at this. Let's just think about this. So what percentage, if you have for 7 Black women in college, you have 1 Black man in college. And Tamika over at Women in Linux made a very good point. She was talking about the fact that a lot of men are saying now, if you can't find the college man, then marry the plumber or somebody like that. And Tamika was saying that sometimes it's difficult for the plumber and the college educated girl to communicate, to, not saying that a plumber is not smart, but you have to be able to communicate and have shared interest. And I thought that was a very good point. So you have 7 Black women to 1 Black man. And let's say half of the Black girls want to get married, right? So now you've got 3 to 1. The problem is that not every young Black man in college wants to settle down and get married. If it's 10%, if it's 10%, I'd be shocked, right? Young Black men in college that would be wanting to date a young lady and marry by the age of 25, 26 years old, let's say, right? So now you've got 3,000 young Black women for every 1 young Black man. Based on my fuzzy math, right? If my math isn't right, let me know. But you've got a 3,000 to 1 chance. Or is it 300 to 1? I said 3 to 1, but then you have to take it down by 10%. So 300 to 1. 300 young Black women who want to get married, let's say by the age of 25, to 1 young Black man. That's impossible odds. It's impossible odds. So what are we setting young Black women up for if we don't suggest that they open their options? Do I believe that they should date in college? Yes. When I was in college in the mid 90s. And yes, my mother was like, I sent you to school to get an education. You keep your head in the books and off them boys. Yes, absolutely. Right. Today is a new day. I'm telling all of you ladies, if you are in college now, you need to be networking no matter what. Because if you think you can just study in college and have a great career, depending on the major that you have, that may not work. A lot of majors require you to know people, so you do need to network. You do need to have a social life in college. That is very important. But 300 to 1 odds? And that's 300 to 1 with regards to if he decides to select a Black woman. We didn't talk about that. And yeah, I know a lot of Black men marry Black women, etc. But we didn't talk we didn't talk about that, right? So I just don't want to see upwardly mobile, young, college educated Black women fall into a trap. I don't. Do I have all the answers? No. I am not a relationship person. I'm a math person, though. I'm a statistics person. I'm definitely a financial person. And I want, if we're targeting young, upwardly mobile Black women, I want them to have the greatest chance that they possibly can for success. The best chance possible. In the meantime, everybody, click the like button. How many likes do I have right now? Let's see. If I don't have enough likes, I'm gonna need some more likes. I got 23 likes. I need more likes, please. Like the video. And if you're not signed up to our email list, where we give you behind the scenes content and a Zoom meeting every month where we break down a piece of information from our point of view, bwmakingmoney.com for you to get on that list. So I need more likes, please. All right, let's finish listening to Ebony, and then we're going to go and listen to Scott Galloway.
And by the time you reach my age, 40, you will be faced with different choices relating to life partnership and motherhood. Now, I'm not saying that delaying marriage or motherhood is a bad option, but it's one that comes with its own consequences. And our women deserve to know on the front end of their decision making instead of on the back half.
Okay. And I agree with her that we need to know on the front end versus the back end, right? I agree with her. And she only had a 2-minute segment. And again, I believe she's trying to promote her judge show. So this is a great way for her to go viral. So, et cetera, et cetera. But there are nuances with that. And if a young lady, this is a hard thing to say, but I think it's important. If a young lady doesn't have a father or uncles or brothers in her life or any kind of male figures that she would look up to, I do believe that it's going to be harder for her to select like a great long-term partner without having either both mom and dad or aunt and uncle or somebody like that looking at this young man from those points of views as well. So Rana is in here saying, I was at an event in my school and a woman who was in charge said merit is not enough. That is the biggest thing I'm trying to express to all of you, is that merit these days ain't going to cut it. In fact, that's what we're going to talk about on Thursday evening, is that the American dream is no longer going to be for average people. The American dream is going to be reserved for the highly skilled and the exceptional. So please watch the Latham Wesley Snipes movie, Disappearing Acts is What Happens When Black Women Date and Marry. That, look, there's a lot of movies out there that have the same story. On the flip end, watching Sanaa Lathan and Something New that she did with Blair Underwood and that handsome white guy. I can't remember his name. I think Simon Baker is his name. That showed how she was unequally yoked with an upwardly mobile Black man and how she ended up being a better fit for the white guy as well. So I don't want people to think just because you're dating up and not down that person is a good fit for you, because that may not be the case. He in that movie, Sanaa Lathan did with Blair Underwood and that other guy, Simon Baker, it really was about who was going to give her the most well-rounded life. Also, the white guy liked her natural hair, and the black guy was like, "When you gonna put your weave back in?" or something like that, from what I remember of the movie. So yeah, hey, level up, single mom. There is an American dream, Brown Hillary Banks. There is an American dream. The question is, can you afford it? That's the question. There is still an American dream. The question is, are you going to be able to afford it? And you're saying you like something new. Yeah. Dark and Lovely is in the building saying, I think Gen Z Black girls are ahead of the game and they are trying to divert them from breaking generational curses and upsetting the establishment. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. So, um, Ron is saying the American dream has been dead since the 2007 recession. If you are poor or middle class, yes. If you are truly upwardly mobile and truly upper middle class, no, you can still afford the American dream. We're going to talk about it though on Saturday. We're going to talk about it. American dream of what it was. So we're going to like talk about it, and hopefully I'll have time to put, not pen the paper, but like put together a little slideshow, because we're going to talk about the cost of the American dream. And as you all are dating men, I want him to pull out the pen and paper as well. I don't think that you should birth. This is nothing. I don't think any woman should agree to have a a child with a man who does not know the cost of daycare. Because I was listening to Erica one day and she was talking about how she's been doing all these consults for years. And she mentioned that she would be on a consult with a guy and he would say, my wife is pregnant. And all of a sudden things got real for me. I didn't realize how much all of this costs. Does he have the money to pay for any kind of medical treatments that needs to happen? Because some people, like, you get a co-payment when you're delivering, right? Does he know the cost of diapers? Does he know the cost of formula? Does he know the cost of daycare? Right? I don't think you should birth any babies for any men who doesn't know the cost of these things. It's just like if he takes you to a steak restaurant, a nice one, right? And all of a sudden the bill comes, you two feasted, right? Feasting means you had a good time in the bed. You feasted, then you get up from the table, the waiter comes with the bill, and he's looking at you like, I didn't expect it to be this much. Ladies, we cannot afford that. If you are marrying, even before you marry a man, if you're serious about having children with somebody and you're still in the dating phase, hit them with the daycare costs. And if you don't know what the daycare cost is, ask some friends of yours how much they're paying for daycare. Some of these places are charging $1,000 a week for a newborn. And if he says he can't live without your salary, like, he can't, when the bill comes due, this is part of the American dream. We're going to talk about this on Thursday. This is part of the American dream, is to have a house, is to have 2.5 kids, is, to have your kids in ballet and soccer or football or whatever. Is he going to be able, and are you going to be able to afford the bill when it comes due? A lot of people can't. And these politicians are lying to people saying the middle class, we're going to fight for the middle class. We're going to make things affordable. We're going to make affordable housing. Y'all know what I do mortgages now. You know, the latest mortgage that was presented to me that I'm going to start selling to people are these things called accessory dwelling units. They're little small, tiny houses that you can put in the backyard of a main house. That's the new affordable housing. And now you've got banks and companies that are going to be starting to give mortgages on these little, they call them ADU units. So that requires a mortgage. Yeah, some of them are expensive. Hmm. Yeah, but it's a great way to have it as an investment property, and you are able to rent it out. Or, you know, you may live in the ADU and rent out the main house and have somebody pay for your mortgage that way. So Dawn to Earth is saying, I think so many generations of Black women have been so used to single mothers that it's just the norm, no matter the economics. That is a sad state of affairs. And unfortunately, these days, there was a time when you could be a single mother, and even though it was tough, you could still make it, right? And give your child a higher level of education and a higher level of access to opportunity. Those days are really ending quite quickly. They are. So we have to be honest with the young women who are coming through right now to say the things that your grandmother was able to do, you may not be able to do that and live at the same level. So, um, so I wanted to show something else to you, ladies. I want to show to you this here. This is a gentleman, the Diary of a CEO. He's the podcast host, and the other gentleman that you're going to see is a guy named Professor Scott Galloway. He used to be an NYU professor, and now he has a couple of different books. He, along with another gentleman named Richard Reeves, has really been banging the gong with regards to men and the issues with men these days. And of course, they're looking at white men, right? I think the Black men have some additional issues that, are separate and apart. But we care about this from just now we're looking at, if you're just staying in the Black community as a young lady, you've got a 300 to 1 chance of nabbing an upwardly mobile Black man. So now we're saying what? Open your options. But guess what? When you open your options, there are issues happening with white people and with other ethnicities in America, in Europe, and in Australia. These things are happening, and we need to be aware of these things as well. So I'm going to play a little bit of this for you, ladies, and then we're going to talk.
This vision of society.
I think even the way we frame the problem is incorrect. And that is, when we talk about, if you were to say that women are 3 times as likely as men to kill themselves, I think we would talk about the problem through the lens of it being a societal issue. And we would immediately move to what investments and change in behavior and education would address that problem. When we say young men are killing themselves at 3 times the rate as young women, we use terms like accountability, or say things, well, if they just opened up more about their emotions, or they need to get their act together. And that is, we've decided when it comes to men, compassion is a zero-sum game. And that if you feel bad for men, it immediately kind of outs you as someone who might be anti-women or who's gone red pill. Because the void, the statistics are just staggering. 4 times more likely to be addicted, 12 times more likely to be incarcerated. And because nobody was talking openly and honestly about those very real issues, that void created opportunity for what I think are some unproductive voices to fill that void and start speaking to these men. And naturally, a lot of people now have a gag reflex when they hear people talking about the problems around them. So the first is, we need to frame the problem as This is a real issue that requires and deserves compassion and our sympathy. It's not a zero-sum game. Civil rights didn't hurt white people. Gay marriage didn't in any way diminish heteronormative marriage. And so the first is to have a conversation that this is a group that's struggling, and to stop using terms like accountability and somehow blaming them for their own problems here. The 19-year-old male should not pay for the sins of his father or grandfather. Now, and my Yoda on this is Richard Reeves, but basically it comes down to kind of three things. The first is biological. Our prefrontal cortex does not mature as fast as a woman's. An 18-year-old woman from an executive function standpoint is like a 20-year-old male. So, or put another way, two seniors in high school applying to college, the woman is essentially competing against a 16-year-old. And that is, her prefrontal cortex had that executive function that he has. She had it at 16. So we're seeing double the number of women graduating from U.S. colleges as men, because it's 60-40 ratio when they start, and then the ratio only gets worse because more men drop out. That still is an incredible on-ramp to influence and economic security. These men aren't getting on that on-ramp. So there's biological reasons. There's also, I think, the education system is just biased against men. A boy is twice as likely on a risk-adjusted basis or behavior-adjusted basis to be suspended for the exact same activity as a girl who's brought into the principal's office for this exact same infraction. You're sitting in front of me as a guy, you're twice as likely to be suspended for cheating on your chemistry test as a girl coming in. A black boy is 5 times as likely to be suspended as a girl. So we have a real bias. Now, part of that is that 90% of primary school teachers are women. There are more female fighter pilots per capita than there are male kindergarten teachers. Men are not going into early stage education. And this is really important because you have an entire cohort of boys who grow up. If you were to point to a single point of failure where all of this starts, if you said, where did this young man come off the tracks? If you tried to identify one signal through all the noise, it would be the following: when the boy no longer has a male role model.
Okay. He subsequently talks about the fact that is why people like Andrew Tate, which he does despise Andrew Tate, which is a great thing. But he talks about the fact that is why Andrew Tate and some of these other manosphere men or red pill men really like take the world by storm, or not the world, but these young men by storm, because of the fact that they don't have male role models. So ladies, one of the things that we are thinking of as, if you want to get married, Eboni is talking about MRS degrees and things like that. It really is, what kind of men has he been around? Has he been around men? What kind of morals have they taught him? Et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that True Mystique asked was, who is we? Where'd you say that? Who is we? True Mystique, this is a very interesting thing. We is European society. We is European society. They are about to do something about their man crisis. They don't want them turning red pill. I don't believe. Based on what I'm seeing, I don't think that they want their young men turning completely red pill. I also think that they recognize that they have a real birth problem across the globe. If you all ever watch the YouTube channel Bourbon Bougie, she talks about different countries all over the world where the birth rates are down. The only places where the birth rates are not down is in the Middle East and in sub-Saharan Africa. Everywhere else, Japan, Korea, Europe, the United States, even South America, the birth rates are down. But the Europeans, they want their birth rates to start going back up. They're not going to do it by force. I don't think, at least not now. We're not going to see a Handmaid's Tale. I don't think so, at least not right now. They are looking at how can we infiltrate elementary school, middle school, high school. How can we get young women to really start marrying again and thinking about families, thinking about the family, et cetera, et cetera. So we're seeing a lot in the algorithms with regards to men and their mental health, and with regards to women choosing to marry men and start a family and things like that. So, um, Abundance is saying, I've listened to several Jewish content channels, and it's clear that having money and resources is baked into their religion and culture. It's a commandment for them. It absolutely is. I told you all that one of the channels I like is Living L'Chaim. L'Chaim is Lchaim. And because I've been, watching that channel, I get a lot of other Jewish content that comes through, and it's really interesting to see how they navigate the world. So, especially when it comes to money. You're saying it's a man's world. When we say we, they mean women, to help them and give them sympathy and compassion. Men had better help other men and boys. And I ultimately think that is what Scott Galloway is thinking, is that men do need to help other men. So I will give him that. Sheet is saying facts is not easy, but we look bad for being emotional or talking about it. So I believe that most men who are healthy, they will have a wife at home or somebody that they can really confide in. Doesn't mean the wife wants to see you crying every night. Of course, we know that. But if you don't have that emotional release with somebody, and I don't think you usually do that with with men. I think that men usually will do that with a wife or a very serious girlfriend. If you don't have somebody to be emotional with, then it bottles up. It bottles up. So, Beulah saying lies. Girls in high school are not given any grace. No. Is it just Black girls, or is it no girls? Are white girls given grace? Are Asian girls given grace? Is it just not Black girls? Because I would believe you if you said, Beulah, that Black girls aren't given grace. But I think the white girls and the Asian girls are. I don't have any stats to prove that, but I think they are based on some of the stories that I've been seeing. Women cannot fix the issue. And I don't think Scott Galloway or Richard Reeves is suggesting that women fix the issue. I think when I say society, I guess I mean like the system. The system needs to be fixed, and white men are in charge of the system. So you're saying society seems like a cop-out term. Maybe. You're saying here men shouldn't teach kindergartners. However, it's a boys' school, then fine. Maybe. If he's not teaching kindergarten and there's no man in the home, or if it's very toxic in the home, then where does a 5-year-old boy get his male influence from? I don't have the answer to these questions. I'm just asking them. Sounds like men are finally realizing the side effects of patriarchy. Now men are in a position where the patriarchy is not giving them the benefits they were promised. I don't know. I'm not going to claim to know. I don't know enough about that. But it's interesting. Interesting thought. You were talking about the birth rates. The birth rates are down in South America. Yeah, I heard that they are. So is down in Mexico. Yeah. Um, I inspired the Jewish content. I like it. And now I'm starting to get like clips of like them singing and them dancing and like the Orthodox Jews. I think it's the Orthodox Jews with the little tendrils and the hats and all of that. And like I'm into it now. So and of course I like to watch their money content. So I want to go through one other thing here that Scott said that I thought was interesting, and then we're going to wrap up for the evening. So he talks about AI driven relationships that are coming. I have my conspiracy theory. If you all want me to put the link in the chat, then put a one in the chat for me. If no one puts a one in the chat, then we're just going to play this part. I'm going to give you my conspiracy theory and then we're going to go. But if you want to come up on the panel, briefly say something, you can put a one in the chat and I will drop the link.
Small business that works, about approaching someone and getting the interview, cold emailing someone and getting a coffee, and quite frankly, pursuing someone and developing the skills and deciding to put on a clean shirt and maybe shower more often and maybe hit the gym every once in a while and maybe text when you're not sure how this person feels about you, and figure out a way to interact with someone around the nuance and develop the skills around human sexuality such that you can develop a relationship. That is the victory. That's the payoff after the 2 hours. And fewer men are engaging in those risks and that victory. And I think that AI, in combination with sex bots, is going to create an industry where men start having relationships with algorithms and dolls. Supposedly the sex bot industry is going to be bigger than the domestic box office receipts of all movie theaters in the US within 5 to 6 years.
Did you all hear that? Did you all hear that the sex bot industry is going to bring in more money than movies? Let's hear this again. I'm just going to back it up a little bit because he started off talking about how men can actually do better. But when I heard this from a business point of view, this goes to the capitalism part of what we're talking about. I think that all of these things are very interesting and they're all interwoven. And when we're looking at the messages that we're getting, whether they're from Ebony K. Williams or Yanla or the Manosphere or Shira 7 or Cynthia G or whomever, kind of looking at everything in totality and taking a step back and asking, who's the puppet? Who are the puppeteers? And like, what's the ultimate goal from all of this? So let's listen to this again.
Payoff after the 2 hours. And fewer men are engaging in those risks and that victory. And I think that AI, in combination with sex bots, is going to create an industry where men start having relationships with algorithms and dolls.
So he was talking about the 2 hours there. Basically, he was talking about the fact that there was a time when men used to have to walk up to women, get rejected, et cetera, et cetera. Now they're not going to have to do that anymore because there are going to be some huge industries that are being created with the help of AI and robotics in order to comfort the lonely men or the men who just don't want to get married or be bothered with a woman on a day-to-day basis.
Supposedly the sex bot industry is going to be bigger than the domestic box office receipts of all movie theaters in the US within 5 to 6 years. So we're going to have men having relationships with machines and dolls as opposed to other humans. And I think it creates a level of depression. I think her should be required watching for every teen male. And I think every teenager in high school should have a course as part of health on mating dynamics, where they teach especially young men that approaching a woman and expressing romantic interest while making her feel safe is a skill, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that the end game, a relationship, a partner, a romantic partner, is one of the keys to a happy life. And I think most studies bear that out. And we are sequestering, for a variety of reasons, men from the opportunities to have those relationships. And it also impacts women. But what we're seeing with women is 2 in 3 under the age of 30 have a boyfriend. Only 1 in 3 men have a girlfriend, because women are dating older. They want more economically and emotionally viable men.
On the point of sex.
So, we're done with this. The domestic box office, I just looked at it. The domestic box office is about $7.5 billion a year. So, in the next 5 years, these sex bots are going to be taking over. What Scott Galloway and Richard Reeves wants to do is figure out a way where there's some curriculum that teaches these men game, basically, that teaches them how to talk to a young lady, how to communicate with her, how to ask her out on a date, how to build long-term relationships. Even a lot of the conservatives out there, I'm thinking of, even though he has his flaws, is Matt Walsh, is really out there trying to get young men to actually want to get married and position themselves for marriage. There was even a discussion that Scott Galloway said was initially, even Andrew Tate was about that. He just wanted young men to have more confidence. And then, of course, things took a left turn, which, that deviant, it may have always been that way with him. I don't know. I only discovered him, of course, when everyone else was talking about him and the issues that he was having. But I think that this is a very interesting. I think what's happening here is very interesting. I'm curious, and I'm going to be paying attention. One of you said, "I wish I can invest." Let me tell you something. There are going to be some billionaires made. There's going to be some billionaires made from this industry. Coco Tigress. I'm looking to see where I can invest. Look, there's going to be some billionaires made from this industry. Number 2, we had talked before, I believe, on this channel about the name, image, and likeness. I know Erica Williams has talked about it as well. There are going to be young ladies that are going to be giving away, not like they're not going to get a check every time some guy wants a doll of them, right? But they're going to be giving away their name, image, and likeness, their voices, their figures, things like that. It's going to be weird. My tingly conspiracy theory hat on is saying that there's going to be a subsection of the world, of the developed world, where the men will have these bots, and the men will, like, they will consider themselves in a real relationship with these robots. And it wouldn't surprise me if they're going to start impregnating the robots. I know it's my little conspiracy theory. I know people are saying that you cannot grow children in a lab now, like, impregnate, like, we call it, not impregnate people, but like have a womb, an artificial womb. I've seen the artificial wombs for lambs and other animals. And if we're seeing those things, the stuff that we are not seeing, Cherie believes, that's me, Cherie believes that some of these young men are going to have 2 robots. One robot is the pregnant robot that is giving them a legacy, and the other robot is for their pleasure, let's just say. But that's just me. That's just me. That is my conspiracy theory. My conspiracy theory. But going back to our original conversation with regards to Eboni, with regards to MRS degrees, bus driver gate, single motherhood by choice. She's had a lot of controversial things that she has said over the past several months. It's interesting to see how all these things are going to be interwoven with the issues and the concerns that white people, society is having. One of the things that is not happening with Black men is their lack of being able to have access to women. I believe the supermajority of Black men can still land a chick or several chicks. So when Scott Galloway is speaking, when Richard Reeves is speaking, when Chris Williamson is speaking, they're not talking to Black men, like, at all, right? But if you, as a young Black, upwardly mobile woman, decide you're going to have your options open, this is part of understanding the options open, is that there are other groups and ethnicities of people that their men are struggling with this. Rana, I saw you can come back if you want to. I'll stay here for a couple more minutes. But I think all of this is just something to pay attention to. If you are looking to get married, definitely have your head on a swivel. And, that is it for me. Rana is in the building. Hello. You can unmute yourself. Rana? Rana going once. What's my mom's
Hello?
name?
Oh.
Hey, Rana. Hi.
Hi, good evening. Sorry. So my thoughts on that, regarding the topic of what Ebony is saying, is that she is targeting the younger generation, particularly Gen Z and millennials, because millennials right now and Gen Z, we're not listening to what the average or what the Black person on television are saying right now. We just don't really care about it anymore, what they really think. So I think that is the issue, and they try to target us. And we just think, okay, you're saying one thing but you're doing the other, so which becoming like hypocritical. So that's what's going on. And I think she tried to target us and try to tell us, hey, we need to hurry up and get married. But that advice doesn't work, as you mentioned. I think that's what you mentioned. Yeah. So that advice doesn't work anymore, because the American dream now is not the same for them 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Nowadays, it's like, if you look at it economically, you have to have a bachelor's degree to get into a job, or even to work at a little place. It's like the new high school diploma, I would say.
It's true. And a lot of places are requiring experience as well. I'm reading a lot of articles about that. Unless you know somebody who will get you in, and give you a shot to kind of get experience. But yeah, I think you're right. I think she is targeting Gen Z, but she's targeting with, I won't say completely wrong data, but it's not fully fleshed out, and it's not nuanced enough, and that can be very dangerous for young women. I also believe that I've been seeing a lot of. I don't have TikTok, right? But when people put stuff on YouTube, I'm able to see what's happening on TikTok, and there are a lot of 40 to 50-year-old women warning 20 to 30-year-old women about marrying the wrong man, not keeping a career, being too financially dependent on a man, etc. And I do believe that a lot of that is causing young women to say, well, maybe I don't want to get married. Maybe I don't want to put myself in a bad predicament. I do believe that as well. That has something to do with it. Go ahead, Rana.
Yes, and another thing, when you mentioned that Virgie babe, I forgot her name, but I
Mhm.
watch her too.
Mhm.
When she mentioned like the lower birth rates
Mhm.
going on in the country, I think I told I used to work in Asia. I used to work in Korea as a teacher. So here's why, and I can understand why. Um, basically, basically being a housewife is most of the woman's job in Korea, and there's no rights in terms of protecting them from domestic violence. And I don't know if I should say this story, but it's a little bit it's triggering. I don't know if you want me to say the story, but it's triggering. One of my teacher friends went to camping, and she and her friend hear two married couple with children, and the husband beats up the wife, and they could hear it, and no one does anything about it. So I think that's one of the factors of that is domestic violence. And like another thing, when you mentioned I talked about the event I went to last Friday gone. Um, the lady who's in charge of the event said this verbatim. She didn't say it verbatim, but she say, yes, it's great that you have a 4.0 GPA, but that's not enough. You have to put the outwork. You have to socialize. You have to network. You have to do this. So, so I realized that, and everyone is fussing about affirmative action
And you
because it
realize
can't.
Auntie Cherie was right, right?
And you were
I've been
right. Yes, you
I've
were
been
right.
talking on this channel for like a year, warning you ladies.
And she say that, and I was like, oh my God. I didn't know back in my young days when I was in my 20s about um networking and stuff, but now watching you and
Mhm.
learning from you, when she said it, I was like, "Oh my God."
It
That
is so important.
And it was like a leadership conference. I was like, "Okay, I might as well just get serious to the club." I need to start. I joined like two, but it's like I need to start being more active and not just go to
Mhm.
car and parking lot, you know? So
You can't
that's
do
what
it.
that's what
Yeah.
messed up a lot of Black women, car and parking lot. But yes, I will be on mute if I think
Mhm.
someone else can speak. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rana. Level Up Single Mom. I think this is your first time on my panel. I'm honored to have you. How you doing, my dear?
Hi, I'm honored to be here. It is my first time up here. How are you?
I am good. What do you think about tonight's topic?
I was watching another interview with her with Ebony,
Mhm.
and I forget it was a doctor, young millennial psychologist, I think,
Okay.
or a therapist, but she's a doctor, and she was talking to her and basically saying like she felt like Ebony wasn't being responsible with her platform in saying what
Mhm.
she was saying,
Mhm.
and promoting what she was promoting. But I liked this interview. And is your email up on your page thing?
Yeah, it's bwmakingmoney at gmail.com.
Okay, because
Mhm.
I'll send you what I was watching because I
Yeah.
found it so interesting. And I think I haven't decided if I'm going to do a live stream about it or if I'm going
Mhm.
to try and like make a static video about it. But it was so interesting because I'm listening to Ebony K. Williams, and mind you, I've seen her like in passing on the griot, but I never really paid her much attention. I saw
Mhm.
the whole thing with her and Iyanla, and everything. And of course, I dismissed her because
Mhm.
it just sounded like more of the same and whatnot. But when I was watching I'm sorry, I thought I heard something. I
Oh.
was watching the interview. As she was talking, I was like, oh my God, I agree with her. I agree with pretty much everything that she was saying because what I heard resonated with me because I've talked before on my platform about um, not having any guidance in certain things,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of picking up on certain things energetically, maybe, or subconsciously, but not knowing what to do with that information, finding yourself in situations where you're like, oh, if I knew this, I would have navigated completely differently. And what I heard her saying was, I am talking to two specific groups of people. I'm talking to, yes, younger women, but I'm talking to them because of the older women I'm aware of who may have limited time, who really want to do this thing. And in order to do this thing, I can teach you how to do this thing, which would be getting married.
Mm-hmm.
And or gaining access to a viable, sire for your children. And she was talking about these things in such specific ways. I said, this is what I talk about on my platform. I talk about making conscious decisions instead of concession. I talk about moving from a place of intentionality instead of just kind of going like, oh, I didn't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of drifting on a whim. She's saying, know yourself, first of all. Like she was saying things like, oh, know if you want to get married specifically because you just want to get that piece of paper in your hand, specifically because you want that social capital. Like know that about yourself, because then you're going to approach it a completely different way. If you know that you just want to get married and you want to have the picket fence and you want to do this, that, and the other, you're not going to have time to get caught up with a slick talker. You're going to be, how much money do you make, sir? Are you educated? Are you like, all seriously? I just was like, I get what she's saying. And she's saying to people, like, if you really know that about yourself, that this is something you want for whatever reason you want, you have to be intentional about it. And I can tell you how to do it. Like, that's what she was saying. She's like, if you want to get married and you just know you want to get married, I can tell you how to get married. You may have to make a few concessions, but I can tell you how to get married. And I don't see anything wrong with that, but that people are missing the part where they have to do the work on themselves to know themselves well enough.
Well, she did not stress that. And I
No.
realized it was only 2 minutes, right? But
Yeah.
even in her Breakfast Club interview and things like that, I just, um, there were aspects of the conversation that I felt were missing. And if you grew up in a household with mom and dad, or, like my parents, for example, were divorced, but my father and I were still close enough that I got to really kind of engage with him. I think that's very different than a young lady who has only grown up with mom and has never engaged with dad or uncle or anybody like that. And then she says, I want to get married. And she's thrust into college and she meets a smooth talker. Um, and she is duped because she doesn't really have that familial infrastructure that can say that guy you shouldn't, and not just having mom say it, but having dad or uncle say it as well. I think that so that's why I'm like, what Ebony said, there are parts of it that's right, but then there's a lot of additional, I don't want to say training, but that's just the best word I could think of right now. The additional training that needs to be done in the Black community so that we are selecting good mates when these young ladies are so young. And she's talking about them getting married at 22, 23 years old when they may not even know what they want yet, because they may say, I want children, right? But then how many of us have seen young women say, I want children, and then they have 2 kids and they're like, nobody told me it was going to be this hard. Even if you have a mate, right? Like you're not prepared for these things. So I just feel like, let's say that Ebony was irresponsible. I just think that there was a lot more, and is a lot more that needs to be discussed for these young, upwardly mobile college girls, if that is going to be your suggestion to them. So
I absolutely agree with you. Like,
mhm.
I feel, and I won't say it's unfortunate. I'm actually glad that these conversations are happening,
Mhm.
because when I was listening to her conversation with the other young lady that I said I'm going to send to you and everything, like that's the thing that I think gets missed in all this discourse and media and stuff, that it's not a zero sum game. You know, like it's not a thing where you have to listen to this one person and you can only listen to this one person and do everything that this one person does. And to her credit, I didn't get from her like we get from other people who have platforms who all they do is, you know, kind of speak to the people in their constituents, if you know what I mean. Like,
Mhm.
you know, that she's just like, oh, yes, I have the answer and this is it. She was just kind of like, look, I have an answer to this particular thing. And, you know, she even went into where her kind of, I'm using the finger quotes, ministry about this particular thing came from, you know, the
Mhm.
emotional pain point and speaking to that.
Mhm.
So it's not a thing where I'm like, oh, yes, girls and women and all girls and women need to do this. She's saying this particular subset of women, young and maybe even a little older, that
Mhm.
have this particular pain point or, you know, potentially could, because it
Mhm.
resonated with me because I've said on my lives before, if I didn't have my children when I had my children, I know that by then I did all the things I think I would have done without children. By now, I would
Mhm.
have been kind of itching and going, oh my God, did I miss my chance? You get what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so she's
Yeah.
saying she's speaking to those people that know, like they know, like they know that they want to be married and or have children.
Mhm.
I can tell you how to do it, you know, if that's something that you're really, really focused on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that about Ebony. I it we will see what happens long term. Let's just say, let's just say that we will see what happens long term with this movement. You know, Pretty Practical is saying mothers need to teach their young girls how to vet men. And then Pretty Practical also said here, I admit my parents taught me little or nothing about vetting men. They just said, don't let anyone use and abuse you. So I wanted to point this out because I think that mothers can only teach you half of the lessons with regards to vetting men. Without a father or a father figure, I honestly think it is harder to teach a young lady how to vet men. The only thing I got from my grandmother, this is graphic, but you know, my grandmother died when she was 96. So, you know, she just had that kind of mouth. She said, um, the position you're in when you have sex is the position you're going to be in when you have a child. Got it? And I was like, yeah. I was like 15 years old, and that was my sex ed lesson from my grandmother in the early 90s. So yeah, I mean, look, women will teach you one way of how to vet a man, but I do think it's important for you to also learn from your father, uncles, you know, men who care about you, not necessarily men online, um, but men who actually care about you and want the best for you. So, um, you're saying here getting married is one thing, but they're barely lasting 2 to 7 years, which is why I started watching The Jewish Matchmaker. I actually watched all 8 sessions or all 8 episodes on Netflix. And then I started watching The Indian Matchmaker as well. I didn't make it as far through that show. But one of the things that they have is a culture of the family selecting the spouse for the young lady and not just the young lady off by herself, you know, trying to figure it out. Um, I think that there is something to that. The other thing I will say to you as young women is that I have spoken not on YouTube, but like in real life with women of other ethnicities. All that glitters ain't gold. All that glitters ain't gold. Some of the laziest husbands I have seen have been from the Asian community. And they, Asian women will not open up to you right away. But once they know you long enough, the stuff that they will say to you behind closed doors, I mean, would shock you. So I see a lot of us, I believe, a lot of Black women on social media um, seem to be envious of these other women from these other ethnicities. And I just would warn you to not be envious of them. You have no idea what's happening behind closed doors. They have a lot of cultural norms that you can't get out of. If anything, I'm grateful to be Black because I have the most amount of freedom with regards to life, relationships, etc. It's not that I want you to be single mothers. However, we have certain stigmas. We do not have certain stigmas in the Black community that if we follow the right path, they can keep us safer than if we were in some of these other communities. So, Rana, you've pulled yourself off mute.
Yeah, but I was gonna say when you mentioned Asian communities, I agree. Like, there's so many horror stories coming out, and you don't, not even in real life. Well, yes, in real life, watch like some documentaries, especially like any British documentary about what they do to young women who decide not to marry a man twice their age. What they will do to a young woman who doesn't pay bridal dowry to them. Like, if you listen to the stories, listen to the women who are born in our country, but the parents try to send them away in the Asian country to marry to an old man just so he could get his paper. Like, it's so, and that it does just happen in America. It happens in like in Canada, happens in Australia, it happens in the EU. Just listen to those stories, and it's really sad. So, but yeah, I agree with you. Like, don't just be envious of other like cultures because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And you know, a YouTuber says something like that. I will not say this YouTuber, but I watch her podcast, and she says sometimes the white woman who has these picture perfect pictures, they're crying behind those pictures.
Trust me, I've been in the rooms with them.
They're crying. So so you don't know what's going on. That's why you hear the next day, a woman who wrote a child's book killed her husband. Why? You know, so yeah, so just don't, you know?
Yeah. Just, you know, we have our issues in the Black community, but y'all know I'm conservative and I listen to a lot of the conservative leanings on YouTube, but the numbers don't say it all. Just because a group of people are married more or have higher net worths and all of that doesn't mean that the women in that culture not catching hell, on the back end. That's a big thing I want everyone to know. Well, we're about to wrap up now. Level Up Single Mom, you have any final words for us?
I just want to thank you again for having me up. You look so cute. I wanted to say that too.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was like, oh, I might as well be on. I had my lipstick on for my other show this evening. So yeah, so
Oh, it's
figured.
working. Glad to see your face.
Thank you. Thank you so much, my dear. And come back anytime.
Absolutely. You have a
All
good
right.
night.
Good night. Rana, you got anything, final things to say?
Yes, I was just gonna say, you know, thank you for sharing us this topic. And thank you for like telling us the truth and not, you know, give us and being honest with us with the real world for younger women. Cause most people on this platform are not being honest with young women and you know, and telling us lies. And you know, so I really do appreciate that. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I will always do my best to tell you the truth as I know it and as I'm experiencing it, which is why I'll never expect to be big, have like a huge subscriber counts and all of that, because I just don't intend to come on here and tell you, tell the majority of people what they want to hear. But, you know, everybody, please like on your way out. Please like. Thank you so much, Rana, for being here with me. Thanks to everybody for chiming in. Thursday show is going to be fire, y'all. We're going to talk about the American dream. The American dream will no longer be for average people. If you come in to America, if you're in America and you think you're going to be average, these politicians will tell you anything. So I might bring in some politics on Thursday. But we definitely going to talk about the numbers. We're going to talk about the math, and we're going to talk about the fact that you cannot be average. The average Black man makes like 43,000 a year. The average Black woman makes 41,000 or something like that. I have to look at the numbers again, but it's something like that. You can't live the American dream on that. Impossible. Even two people who are married making $40,000 each, unless you own your own house already. Like I have one of my neighbors, his grandmother is leaving him a fully paid off house. Like if you have something like that, then you can do it. But the American dream will no longer be for the average. So that is why it's so important for us to be upwardly mobile, and for us to be highly skilled, and for us to know how to manage our resources in such a way that we can live the American dream and like live it abundantly. So we're going to talk about that. You want me to bring in the politics as well? Yeah, I probably will. I probably will. I'm will admit I got a lot going on this week, but if I can find a couple of political clips that would tie in to what I'm talking about, I know what I'm looking for. I just need to dig and search for them. So, but y'all know these politicians will tell you anything to get in office, and they sitting here lying through their caps at at middle class America. So we're gonna talk about it from our point of view. Thank you so much for saying my smile and skin are beautiful. Thank you so much. My hands, yes, they're youthful. Yes, praise God. I got some good genes from my grandmothers. Yes. You want my skincare regimen? I have to admit, I don't do anything super special. I don't. I do like this skincare line, DHC, David Harry. I don't know, DHC, David Harry Care, uh, or Chuck, DHC Skincare. I like that. So I use their soap and their toner, and I drink a lot of water. I drink at least 2 of these a day. And other than that, I eat okay. I should eat better, but I try to have as much fruit and vegetables as possible, but I will have potato chips and candy as well. So, that's it. But yeah, that's my skincare regimen, and I work out. I think working out really does help. It helps just to kind of keep you mentally in check. So that's what I do. All righty then. Well, thank you, ladies, for being here tonight. We'll be back on Thursday. Um, Prayerfully with a loan, one of my loans going through on Friday, because it's been tough, y'all. It's been tough. It's been tough because I'm working with a whole bunch of people. My first time working with them, and yeah. But God is good. So we gonna pray for Cherie this week that she makes it to Friday. And if you all need loans, obviously, if you live in Virginia or Maryland and you're looking for a mortgage, definitely contact me, bwmakingmoney.com, or email me, bwmakingmoney@gmail.com. All right, ladies, take care, and I will talk with y'all soon. Night.